There is quite simply nothing like it. Formula One has returned to its European heartland, to one of the most glamorous, beautiful and challenging races on the calendar. And amidst the prestige, the history and the intensity, it is also perhaps the most open race of this 2023 season so far. Welcome to Weekend Warm-Up from the Principality of Monaco. And welcome to the beautiful port, resplendent in sunshine behind me, Laura Winter. Almost did it again. You, Will Buxton, and you, Lawrence Burretto. Welcome, chaps. And my goodness me, this is one of the most jaw-dropping backdrops I think we have the pleasure of presenting in front of, isn't it?
The folks at home can't see unless Steve, our cameraman, turns around. But there's actually a Ferrari F40 on the front of one of the yachts. I mean, it's if you want a pure vision of the absolute lunacy of what Monaco is, there is no finer example than that. Yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah, it truly is. And of course, this our first race in Europe, although it shouldn't quite be. Of course, last weekend's race in Imola was cancelled due to the devastating floods that the region saw. 6 months of rain fell in just 36 hours, and our thoughts remain with them. F1 and Ferrari have both made donations to the Emergency Appeal Fund as well. You can continue to do so to help the people in the region to get through what was just so shocking to see from our side of things, wasn't it, Will?
It was, yeah, and I think absolutely the right call was made, not just because the race itself would have been very difficult to take place and for the fans to get there, but because the pull on the emergency services, who were so desperately needed, over those days, would have just been too vast. And I think we agreed on the show that we made a couple of days ago, looking towards the Monaco Grand Prix. It was absolutely the right decision.
Yeah, and it was unanimous across the F1 paddock. The drivers agreed, the team bosses agreed. I think everyone was just happy that a decision was made really early as well. It just stopped us getting too far into the weekend. Everyone could kind of regroup, to help those out in the region where they could, and then focus on kind of getting this race weekend underway, as we're about to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, before Imola, we are still thinking of all the people out there in the Emilia-Romagna region. We had Miami. It seems quite a long time ago now, but Lawrence, we have tasked you with the 60-second recap of a rather non-eventful race, it has to be said. So
this is the easiest one of the year, isn't it?
Easy, but it was a long time ago, so come on. But I'll give it my best shot.
Okay,
right, here
when
we
you're
go.
ready.
Okay, right, okay. Checo Perez leads away from Fernando Alonso. You're asking, well, where is Max Verstappen? Well, he got caught out in qualifying by the red flag, which meant he couldn't start where he meant to start. He started in P9, didn't kind of make the progress early on that we were expecting him to. Further back, you had Charles Leclerc also trying to come through the field. He had a nice little battle with Kevin Magnussen, who was much further up the grid than we thought he would do. And then while they were squabbling, Max Verstappen got both of them, which was quite a cool move. Max then did start to make progress through the field. Elsewhere, we saw Carlos Sainz locking up heavily as he was coming into the pits. Thought he got it stopped in time, hadn't done, got 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Elsewhere, we had Checo still cruising around at the front, but Max was hunting him down. And even though Checo pitted and Max got up into the lead, when Max pitted, Checo found his way back into the lead. Oh, I don't know. I've still got 10 seconds. I thought I was almost there. Right, Checo made it about as far as he could do before Max got him right at the end. Max got an incredible lead. He won from Checo, from Fernando, from George, from Carlos, from Lewis, from Charles, from the two Alpines, and Kevin Magnussen.
Woo!
That was actually good.
That was really good. I know Will spoiled the magic of television by showing you the return monitor in Baku.
You weren't looking at it.
It's here, but you were not looking, Lawrence.
No,
You've been rehearsing, haven't you?
I was trying to do it without looking.
It was very good.
I love it.
I'm impressed.
And actually, thinking about it, it wasn't such a bad race, was it?
I think our expectations are just so high these days. You think back over the history of Formula One, you'd have 1-2 classics every decade that you'd put into the all-time great races, and we just expect one every week now.
We do. Qualifying had set it up a little bit, it has to be said, and Miami generally had hyped Formula One to the absolute max as well, hadn't it? Speaking of Max, he has left Miami 14 points clear of his teammate Sergio Perez to come here to a street circuit. Sergio Perez is, of course, king of the streets. We'll come on to that Red Bull title fight in just a moment. But firstly, we're standing here in the sunshine with this backdrop, as I said earlier. Why is Monaco so special? It seems a silly question when you actually look at the splendour around you, but can you try and sum it up in words, Will?
It's funny, I remember one of the early years I came here and I was just wowed by how magnificent it is. And I remember one of the sort of the wizened old scribes who'd been in the sport for many years said, remember that no matter how long you go in this game and no matter how much the travel grinds you down, one day in Monaco will re-enliven your passion for Formula One. There is nowhere that you get closer to the cars, nowhere that the drivers get the cars closer to the barriers. It is an insane race that if it was proposed today would be laughed out of the room at the point of conception. It couldn't ever be placed on the calendar today. It's too fast, the streets are too narrow, it's too dangerous. One small mistake, there is no runoff. There are no second chances, which is why a win here means so much to every single driver, regardless of where they come from, what their home Grand Prix is. This is the one they all want to race. It is the ultimate challenge of a racing driver, to be in that hypnotic state of driving through these tunneled streets. It's mad. Like, to be honest, it's mad.
It is absolutely mad, isn't it? And Lawrence, just a quick word from you on why Monaco is so special. And Will's right, it's about that flow the drivers have to get into, that state of mind to master this track. And it's a track that every single driver wants to win at, and indeed the very best do.
And I think that what's quite special about it is nothing else like it, right? You can't go anywhere else in the world and try and experience what the drivers are experiencing. I've watched a lot of onboards around here, and I feel like that's the closest that I've ever been able to get to what a driver feels like in the car, because there's so much going on. 19 corners and 3 kilometres. There's no time to breathe. It's stressful. You often hear it's stressful because they just don't get to relax. It's such a demanding race. And if you kind of get this track right, it means you've got a driver skill that kind of goes beyond the quality of your car. And I think that means that even if you're one of those drivers who are further back, and, you know, Red Bull have been so dominant this year, if you pull out a performance around Monaco, you're reminding everyone that you're still one of the best drivers in the world.
Absolutely. Talking of best drivers in the world champion Max Verstappen is 14 points clear looking at the championship standings so far. Of his teammate Sergio Perez, it seems the Red Bull title fight is emerging as the strongest storyline in those championship standings throughout the course of the season so far. Alonso, 4 podiums so far from 5 in P3, with Lewis Hamilton in P4 and Carlos Sainz in P5. Can anyone here, though, in, as I say, perhaps the most open race so far this season, break the Red Bull spell, break the stronghold that this team have on the season at the moment?
No.
Oh, Will.
But yes, I think for every team hoping to take Red Bull on and beat them, this is, as you said, this is their best chance, because anything can happen. We saw in Baku, Ferrari, very strong over that lap, particularly, look, we know they don't have the straight line speed, so that's all made up through the corners, through the slow bits of that circuit. If Charles can pop the thing on pole, it doesn't matter that his car's dreadful during a Grand Prix and that his race pace is all over the place. You don't need race pace to win here. You just need a wide car.
And a reliable car.
And a reliable car. Yes. But Aston have already pinned this as the one that they hope that they can be successful. And I talked to Charles earlier today, and he was just like, this is our best shot. There's a lot of people in this paddock who think they can spring a surprise this weekend.
And we'll see, though, if they can, indeed. We can hear now from Max Verstappen, of course, winner here in 2021.
Hey Max, great race for you, because you didn't have to go very far to get to the track. Is it a nice weekend? Does it make it a little bit more relaxing, or is it very much you get to the track and it's all pretty much the same?
It's still very chaotic, of course, the whole weekend. I personally prefer Monaco when we are not here for Formula One, but no, it's all right. I mean, it's a very crazy place to drive in a F1 car. I think everyone enjoys coming here, putting it on the limit and trying to be as close as you can to the walls. So from that side, of course, yeah, it's an amazing feeling while driving.
You've obviously been the class of the field, your car this year, but you expecting it to be a little bit closer with teams like Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston pushing you a little bit harder this weekend?
I do think so. I mean, we've not been, let's say, very dominant in qualifying. We have been always very good in the race, but we know that here in the race, normally you can't pass. So it's very important to have a strong qualifying, make sure that the car is in the best window it can be for one lap performance, because that's what this weekend is all about.
Great stuff. Have fun. Thanks.
Well, Red Bull with 3 wins from the last 4 years here in Monaco, but Ferrari are very much looking to spoil that party, and indeed the party that Red Bull have been enjoying so far this season, with a win at every single race so far. Lawrence, the news today is they are bringing upgrades. What have you found out?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a chat to Fred earlier today, and I have to say, of all of the races where I've spoken to him, this is the one where he feels the most confident. Obviously, he's not saying, yeah, we're going to go out and win this. but he's a little bit more jokey, he's a little bit more jovial. I genuinely think he feels if they can get qualifying sorted like they have done at every other race, like Will was saying earlier, they don't have to do a lot wrong other than just make sure that car doesn't break down. So I think they are feeling very good. They've brought those little upgrades that they were supposed to bring in Imola to this track. I think a lot of the upgrades we'll see just generally here, we won't actually really see what they deliver in terms of performance because it's such a different track. But it's still useful for the teams to put them on the car, because what's the point in going backwards, right? You may as well go forwards with what you've got and try and gain on it. So yeah, he's in a really good mood. Will mentioned how good mood Charles in. I spoke to Carlos as well. He's feeling pretty racy around here. 2 podiums around here, second and second. So he seems to always go around here. So actually, I'm not surprised Ferrari feel pretty good.
You spoke to Charles Leclerc, the pressure on him. I mean, he's not got the best record in Monaco, just one finish. That was a P4 and DNFs and his fair share of drama on home turf, Will.
Yeah, so you can kind of say there's no pressure on him because it can only get better, really, But while I was talking to him and while he said this is, our best shot of the year, he did also recognise the fact that to get the most out of the car, he's been having to drive it on the absolute limit. And to arrive at a track like Monaco where confidence is key and he doesn't have that in the car, it's a potential negative in what otherwise might be I think a sort of a weekend of hope for them. But he knows he's got to wring the neck of the car. He just can't step over that line where he's making those mistakes on the limit. Thankfully, we don't have any high-speed corners here, though. But it's a question mark.
Before we hear from Charles, we must talk about these Lewis Hamilton rumours. Lewis to Ferrari rumours. 40 mils apparently on the table, but you've been getting a bit more from Fred about that.
Yeah, I think Fred essentially said no offer's been made. Like he just wasn't interested in chatting about this kind of thing at the minute. He was trying to keep the focus on the team, on his 2 drivers. He doesn't want to destabilise anything. Lewis was saying in the press conference that actually they've never been closer to signing a deal with Mercedes. So, who knows?
Thank you, Italian media.
Oh, we
needed something in the last fortnight, didn't we?
Well, yeah.
Kept everyone entertained.
There you go. Well, let's hear now from Charles Leclerc.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. A lot of people are saying that this is your and Ferrari's best shot at a Grand Prix victory in the early part of this season. Would you agree with that?
I would agree because it is the only place where quali day might be more important than race day in a way that once you start first here, it is very difficult to then overtake. In qualifying we seem to be a bit more on pace with Red Bull, still behind, but with a special lap we can beat them. So that's my goal really, and then try and keep them behind on Sunday. They will be much quicker than we are on Sunday, like they've been all the Sundays since the beginning of the season. But on a track like this, it is actually possible to keep them behind.
And to know that all of the crowd here are rooting for you, and a huge proportion of the Formula One fan base around the world to see somebody other than a Red Bull take a win this year.
Yes, I'm sure everybody will be very happy. I think also the build-up, like the last years, every time the Saturday was positive, then coming the Sunday, it was a big disappointment. So, yeah, the support is not what we are missing at the moment, but now we just need to make it stick and just make it work on the Sunday.
Good luck, man.
Well, what can Charles Leclerc do? We will find out come, of course, Saturday, one of the most important, if not the most important, qualifying day of the year here at the Monaco Grand Prix. Well, we mentioned him with his links to Ferrari, which both boys have very much said not much of a story in there. All rumours, all hype.
It's a shame.
I mean, it would have been something pretty amazing to see it, wouldn't it? Anyway, we are going to talk about Mercedes, because the big news coming into this weekend is that the proposed upgrades they were going to bring to Imola, and indeed in which we could see the true performance of the car around a much more, I suppose, normal racetrack, they are still bringing here. And it's very much a look at the side pod and the suspension, Will, of this Mercedes car. Yeah.
The side pod's the most noticeable part of the car that's changed, and you will see it. We've seen it in the pit lane today. A more routine, actual side pod rather than the sort of the zero pod that they've been running for the last year and a bit. But don't forget that the architecture of the car beneath those side pods hasn't really changed. So anybody expecting to see a Red Bull severe undercut or a Ferrari-esque, well, actually, I think the big surprise is there isn't a Ferrari-esque kind of scoop in the middle of it. It's all about the airflow, obviously, over the car with those side pods, and about the air intake, obviously, going into the sides as well. But they still have essentially the same architecture underneath those side pods. I think a lot of people were expecting something maybe more advanced, but it is what it is. My point of interest isn't so much on the side pods, but it's the front suspension. They've made massive changes to the front suspension, and in terms of what that does to the pitch of the car, what that does to it under braking, what that does in terms of the sort of the ride height of the car as well, which is something they've struggled with now for over a year. I think that is the massive question here, and certainly the thing that everybody will be keeping an eye on, because while everybody points at that Red Bull and its incredible DRS and how wonderful the aerodynamics of the car are, actually the work that's been done on the suspension at that team and on that car is quite phenomenal. So I pay more attention to the suspension than the side pods.
And indeed, we don't know what's been done to the floor of the car either, and we could certainly see some development there over the course of the weekend. Mercedes are exercising caution around these upgrades, especially bringing them to a track like Monaco, where there is high risk indeed. We can hear now from George Russell.
George, great to see you here in Monaco, and we've got the upgrades that we've been talking about for a long time now. How are you feeling about those being put on the car?
About what, sorry?
The upgrades being put on the car.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's always nice to bring a bit more performance to the car for sure. There's obviously a lot of hype around it, obviously visually different, but one thing, we're here in Monaco, so it's always a unique one. We won't be able to judge anything specifically on that. And I think, as Toto said earlier in the week, there's never any silver bullets. We know this is going to take a little bit of time, but things are pointing in the right direction. So going in with an open mind and see where we fall out.
How much do you love it driving around this track?
Yeah, it's awesome, to be honest. It's always a bit of rain around in Monaco this time of year. Not too sure why. Obviously, it was raining a little bit earlier, but it's the most exhilarating day of the year on Saturday when you're going flat out in qualifying. Obviously, we know the difficulties in the race, but it's always a special one coming here, so surreal racing around these streets, and excited to get going.
Great stuff, have fun.
Thank you.
Not a silver bullet. I think I'd like £1 for every time we hear that from Mercedes. I've heard it quite a few times so far. As I say, they are exercising some caution over these upgrades, but I know many fans out there will be hoping to see some real improvements in pace and indeed in the overall car balance as well, the aerodynamics of that car heading in to Spain next time out. We'll see how it fares here in Monaco. Now, another team who are very much hyping up their chances to win here, Aston Martin and indeed Fernando Alonso. They have made headlines coming into this weekend as well. They are partnering with Honda from 2026 onwards. Lawrence Stroll saying it is the missing piece of the puzzle to becoming a world title fighting team.
Yeah, I think when you've moved from 7th to 2nd over the course of one season, and you look at the infrastructure they're putting in place now, the wind tunnel comes online next year, their new factory, state-of-the-art factory, is just opened this month. You look at all of the recruitment they've done, Dan Fallows has come from Red Bull. You look at what they've done. The obvious piece was to bring a works partner in, because with the 2026 regulations, you need an engine partner who's going to deliver an engine that works with your chassis. It needs to be bespoke for that chassis, and that's what Aston Martin and Honda will deliver in 2026. And let's not forget, Honda are the class-leading engine of the field right now. They've won the championships, both championships in 2022. They won it in 21 as well. And they really are committing to Formula One by doing this deal. So I think it's great for all parties involved. I just want to know whether Fernando Alonso is still going to be here, age 44, in 2026, to give it a go.
You wouldn't bet against it, would you? Indeed,
Not
his
wrong with being in
name.
your 40s.
Indeed, his name is on the lips of many here as a prediction of who might win in Monaco in just over 10 years since his last win in Spain in 2013. It would be an incredible story. I watched a very long slow motion video a little bit earlier on of Fernando Alonso entering the paddock this morning, and he was pooed on by a bird. A bird pooed on him, but that's very good luck.
It's lucky.
It's very good luck.
It's lucky.
You can see it.
We've got a
You can
replay
see it
of
now.
this.
He walks in with his dad, and just the moment there it is. He's clocked it. Oh. He's realised that
he's gonna
is
win.
a
That's
bird. Absolute disgust on his face. I mean, it's good luck. It is good luck for Fernando Alonso. Superstitions aside, though, what are his chances, Will?
How am I supposed to respond to that?
I don't know.
Yes, he will be hoping not to get
Come on, keep it clean.
dropped on by Red Bull Racing this weekend. Honestly good. That car, from the first race, from testing first race all the way through, where it's been really strong is slow speed corners and traction events. This corner is full of them. And I'm not thinking about the race and overtaking possibilities. I'm thinking about qualifying. And getting this car off the corners, getting that jump, getting that initial pace before you have to slow for the next, that is what is going to feed into Aston Martin's positivity this weekend, that they can take pole. And honestly, this race is all about taking pole. Ferrari are confident they can win this race because they think they can take pole. Aston Martin are confident they can win this race because they think they can take pole. It's not about Sunday. It's all about Saturday for them. And if they can get up there, front row, pole position, they're in with a shout. And I've been saying Fernando all year, but genuinely, I think this is the first time I actually believe my own hype for Fernando.
The truth comes out,
yeah,
all right.
you know, come on.
There is positivity at Aston Martin, that is for sure. We can hear now from Mike Crack.
If you're good in qualifying, you can have a really strong weekend, and you guys have been very strong in qualifying. Are you optimistic about a good weekend all round?
Yeah, you are right. In the race, it will be difficult to recover if you have a bad qualifying. So you need to really get your act together. It will be difficult with all these with all that cars in this small tiny circuit. So first of all, it is about getting fault free. Getting your cars through. And we've seen in Miami, small mistake that we made as a team, and we lost one car in quali one. Shame for Lance at the time. There's nothing he could do about it. We just should have called him in at the time. So you see how quickly things can go, and then to recover will be even more difficult here. So we really have to have everything minimum 100% to try and be up front there. And then the race is long, obviously, but there is a high chance that you finish where you start.
So this is your best chance yet, isn't it, for a win, do you think, this season?
Well, I would not say. I mean, we had a quick car in most of the races so far, but Red Bull has always been having the edge. And it would be easy to say now there is less straights and all that. The Aston Martin will be competitive against Red Bull. We have not seen a Red Bull in high downforce configuration, so we need to be vigilant on that. MGP have big upgrades. They might make a big step. Ferrari is always strong, so it could well be that you have circuits where you expect yourself to be good, that you are a bit on the back foot, and vice versa. So we see how practice goes, and then we see at the end how much points we get, if we get any.
Great stuff. Well, Mike, thank you very much for your time, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Lance.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. Huge week for the team. Massive announcement, obviously, Honda from 2026. What does this mean for the team moving forward?
Well, I think it's another piece of the puzzle. It's very exciting news. And we're, motivated to get to the top. And I think Honda's just as motivated and committed as we are, and therefore I think it's such a great partnership.
You don't find yourselves that far away from the top at the moment. On a track like this, is this a weekend where Aston Martin can surprise and maybe even fight for the win?
I hope so. I think we've had a great chassis all year, and this is a track where chassis performance and cars, everything. So definitely hope we can, challenge for the top spots.
Is it all going to come down to Saturday?
It's generally a big, part here. There's not, much action on Sunday, but it's still, a long race on Sunday. It's 78 laps or whatever it is, and a lot of walls and maybe a bit of rain in the air. So, things can happen on Sunday, but it makes life a lot easier when you're, further up there on Saturday afternoon.
Is it one you enjoy?
It is, for sure. I think it's, one that, gets the brain working hard and the heart kicking. So, it's cool.
We told them, drop it.
Well, there we go. Only in Monaco can you get a bonus Lance Stroll edition. Thanks to producer Dwayne for that one. But good to hear from him, and in very good spirits as well, Will, as you pointed out. Alpine, we move on to them. Their de facto home race, as we don't have one in France. And of course, they're still, I suppose, reeling from the comments of Laurent Rossi, aren't they, Lawrence?
Yeah, I think it's been difficult for them to really kind of kick on from those comments. The truth is they were tough. They really were quite honest about where he felt the team was at the minute. We haven't heard from Otmar yet this weekend. I'm looking forward to hearing from him tomorrow when he's in the press conference. But the drivers are very much focused on this weekend. Esteban was talking about how they've got a few upgrades this weekend. They were very good last season at bringing regular updates to the track, so it's important that they continue to do that. But they are very much aware they are fighting for 9th and 10th if the top 4 teams deliver points. And that really isn't very much to write home about. So I think they really will want to take advantage of whatever they can around this very interesting circuit where anything can happen. And then hope that the team back at base are really kicking on with the development programme.
Yeah, fighting for P5 in the championship standings is certainly not where they wanted to be at the start of the season. We can hear now from Esteban Ocon.
Esteban, it's been a kind of an up and down season, I guess, for you guys. There's been some strong races, some very difficult races. We saw Laurent was pretty upset, I guess, at the way that the season's going. What's the atmosphere like in the team at the minute?
Yeah, obviously we are not exactly where we want to be, in terms of performance and in terms of, how the season has been, going. But, we come out from a weekend where we've been scoring points with both cars. Now, we have some upgrades on the car as well. And I'm fully focused, behind the wheel. I'm fully focused to try and bring that car as much forward as it can be, as it can go, and hopefully even more further. And that's what I'm focusing on. I'm here in Monaco. I'm looking forward to have a good weekend, focus on that qualifying as much as we can, and we'll see where that brings us.
Where are you expecting to kind of shake out this weekend? We've seen teams like Mercedes bring quite a big upgrade. Lots of other teams are bringing it.
Yeah.
I guess you'll be bringing a few little bits too.
We will. We have quite a lot of things visually that are coming on the car. Let's see, what it brings to us. Obviously, yes, there's a lot of talks because a lot of teams have bring updates. But we did bring two, and that's a good thing that we do so.
Great stuff. Good luck this weekend. Thanks.
Well, here we go then, on to the next part of the paddock, and we'll talk about Haas, their 150th Grand Prix this weekend for the team. Nico Hülkenberg has been chatting to some of the Alpine engineers as well. He's looked very good in qualifying so far this year. What do you make of their chances, Lawrence?
Yeah, so I asked him about that actually earlier today, because his qualifying form, which is particularly impressive given he's had so much time out of the sport, has been bang on since he's got here. And I think what he's been pleased about is that he's had a car generally at every circuit that they feel they get the setup right and they have a good rhythm into the weekend, they can always fight for points. They haven't always managed to do that. So I do feel like here this weekend, like many teams here, they feel like they've got a chance, and Nico particularly is frankly just excited to be driving Monaco again, having missed it for the last couple of years and been out of the sport. Kevin had a real good result last time out in Miami. I think that was really important for him and for his confidence. And I think he needed that going forward, because Nico kind of been outperforming, hadn't he, really? So I think if they can have two drivers operating at a high level, could be good for those guys this weekend.
Great stuff. McLaren, next subject. Will, you spoke to Lando a bit earlier on.
Yes.
They come to Monaco with a Triple Crown livery. What do you make of their prospects for this weekend? And hopefully we'll begin to see a bit more from the upgrades that seem to perform well in Baku and then definitely not in Miami.
Form's not looking quite as pretty as the livery is. Of course, it's their 60th anniversary this year, and they have won the Triple Crown of Motorsport, being the Indy 500, the Le Mans 24 Hours, and the Monaco Grand Prix, a record 15 times for a team. The I hate to say winningest. That's not right, is it? But people do. The winningest.
Most winning? I don't know.
Yeah, team here in Monaco. Lando said they're not expecting a miracle weekend by any stretch of the imagination, and also then went into discussing how deeply he's having to work with the engineers to try and move the car forward, and how actually that's changed since the technical leadership of the team was altered just a few weeks ago. He and Oscar, he says, are very similar in what they're asking for from the car, namely more downforce. But everyone always asks for more downforce. But they are aligned in where they need the car and the team to go. But he's really taking that team leader role on, and the feedback that he's giving, he says he's quite enjoying it, but he's also feeling that weight of responsibility on him.
And Williams we'll move on to as well. Logan Sargent, of course, with that home race in Miami, and it did not go to plan for him. Was it a warning shot from James Vowles, do you think, or an encouragement?
No, I think it was
to say, you're doing well, let's do better.
It was, I mean, if you just read the words on the page of, Logan needs to put everything together, it could come across as being quite harsh. But actually what he said was, he's doing really well. He just needs to put it all together. And look, for all the rookies, this season has started off unbelievably difficult, because they're all tracks that they've pretty much never raced on before, with the exception of Bahrain. And so to arrive here in Europe, start of the season at which almost every track we go to now will be one on which they have experience, having raced in Formula 2, for Nick de Vries as well, having raced in Formula E. You know, all these rookies will have experience at these tracks. And for Logan, he said to me earlier today, look, this is great for me. You know I need to put a weekend together. Coming to a track that I know, that I enjoyed, that I've raced on before, I don't have the same sort of arduous expectations that I'm putting on myself, actually, to outperform where I am. I can go in with some knowledge, with some confidence, and just start to get the job done. So Lawrence said it actually really well on our preview show. He's driving at 100% at the moment. He just needs to dial it back to 99, and he'll be absolutely golden.
Great stuff. Moving on to Alfa Romeo now. Slow and medium corners are plenty, no high-speed corners here. How much will that suit Alfa Romeo's package, do you think, Lawrence?
I mean, they're very much hoping it is going to suit their package, because they really haven't had a very good start to this season. I think they would have entered it thinking that they were going to make steps last year after finishing 6th in the Constructors' Championship. They really felt like they were on this upward trajectory. They've been obviously jumped by Aston Martin. Nothing really you can do about that when a team's been investing like that. But I still think they would have felt like when they brought developments to the track, they would have done something, and they haven't really given them those steps. More upgrades are here. Valtteri has been calling for them for a while now, and they were supposed to come at Imola. They're coming to the track here. I'm interested to see what Joe can do this weekend as well. Really difficult weekend for him last year, qualified at the back, and then obviously when that happens you can't really recover anything, but he stepped on so much since then. And I think with that in mind and him feeling more confident in the car, again, they're hopeful of things, but I think it's going to be a bit of a tricky weekend for them.
Another driver who has really stepped on is Yuki Tsunoda, and I remember in Australia I sort of said, is he under pressure in his contract year? And I'm very pleased to have got something wrong, because he truly has outperformed that car weekend in, weekend out, and very happy to admit that he is stepping up each and every weekend. But
Maybe it was your comment. Maybe he saw it and just went, I'm going to prove Laura
Sure,
wrong.
I think that's what goes through these drivers' minds. Yeah, well, it's weekend warm-up, isn't it?
Exactly. She can't say that. I'm going to show her.
No, well, he has shown me, and I'm more than happy he has. Delighted for him, but that is piling the pressure on his teammate, Nick de Vries, and Helmut Marko giving him somewhat of a yellow card to say, you've got to start improving these performances by Spain. Is it too early for this kind of chat, do you think, or is that just sort of the Red Bull AlphaTauri way?
Oh yeah, I think it's way too early to be talking about Nick losing his seat. I think even he knows, and he's in that slightly more comfortable position of knowing actually that he's got a lot longer to prove really what he's got under his belt. I think, you know, Red Bull fought really hard for him, you know, to get that seat. They beat off Alpine, they beat off Williams, so they're not going to just like drop him after 5 races. Especially as, and when we were talking about this earlier, Will, on that preview show, he's mostly driven on street circuits he doesn't know. So it's not ideal for him to be able to hit the ground running on that score. And it's just made worse because Yuki, like you were talking about, for me, he's one of the top 3 drivers this year. So when you've got a driver operating at that high level and consistently, he's finished, 10th, 11th, when they're performing like that, what can you do about that? You just have to accept it, don't you?
The car is not good. Ostensibly, it's probably the slowest car in the field over the course of the opening races of the season on an average. For Yuki to be pulling out the results that he was, finishing just outside the points consistently and then in the points consistently, I mean, big shout from Lawrence, top 3 driver of the year, but I don't think he's far off it.
Yeah, 2-point return for Yuki Tsunoda doesn't half tell the picture, does it, of the fact he is always knocking on the door of the top 10. Not so for his teammate. The pressure is on. Let's hear from Nick de Vries.
Nick, it's not been the easiest couple of weeks for you, I'm sure. So much chat in the press. How much of it is real? How much of it isn't real in terms of being given a couple of races to prove yourself? Any of the pressure potentially coming from inside the team?
It doesn't really come as a surprise. I think that's part of our industry and world, and ultimately it comes down to performance and delivering on track. And I think I made a little bit too many mistakes. I'm human, I make mistakes. I try to learn from them and move on. Also, I believe that I've shown good pace at certain moments, which is encouraging me and also proves me that the potential is there. And I personally believe it's a matter of time for things to come together. And regard to all the media, I didn't really read anything. I didn't actually read anything, not during weekends or outside weekends. So it didn't really got me because I don't read it.
I can tell you then.
I'm very sorry for all the media that puts a lot of time and effort in writing and stuff. But I was playing my piano and having lessons and going to the gym. And
Did you get the sheet music for Adele in the
yeah,
end?
and you know what my
You
teacher
did?
said?
What? It's too
She
difficult.
looked at me, yes, she looked at me and said, Nick, nah, she's Italian.
You can play Skyfall. That's easy.
Yeah,
That's
in the
easy.
future. Just the chords.
If you haven't been reading the press, then you might not have known that Franz Tost has come out in your support, and a number of former F1 drivers as well, saying that rookies need, particularly in the modern era, without unlimited testing, years in order to get to the place where they are at the level that they require to be for Formula One. From your perspective, you had that amazing debut, but now as a full-time rookie, how hard is it to get into Formula One and be ready, given there's so little testing?
I think you can't really put a time frame to it, and of course everybody's very talented, and everyone is able to do a quick lap at some point. But the sport is very, I would say, broad in the sense that it's sophisticated technically, but also broadly in the paddock, and how you build a weekend, how you run through all your different fuel levels, different tire compounds, different engine modes, and changing track circumstances, starting with like 3 street circuits. It's just all the little things. It's cumulative. It's never one thing that makes it challenging, but I think together it is not straightforward, but it's our job, and I try to give the best I have.
Not an easy start to the season.
Well, a great interview there with Nick de Vries. He's been learning the piano rather than reading the media. Perhaps, the right thing to do for any driver. Well, that's nearly it.
Yep.
The most open race of the season is almost upon us. We'll kick things off with FP1 tomorrow. Before we get into it, though, I want to hear your predictions, please, boys. Lawrence?
I'm
over to you
sticking
first.
with my prediction of Fernando Alonso winning. I think Charles Leclerc second and Carlos Sainz third.
Lovely.
He's done me there, hasn't he? I'll go with the Charles Leclerc win then.
So no Red Bull on the podium even?
No.
Okay.
Ooh.
Punchy.
Charlie
I like
Boy with the win, Max second, and Fernando continuing the run of podiums.
it. Okay, lovely stuff. I am actually going to say a Max Verstappen win, a Sergio Perez P2, and a Fernando Alonso P3. I've been told dull in my ear from producer Joe. And it's
Harbour's
right.
there.
But as much as I've hyped it up, I feel I really hype the races up and then they fall a little flat. So I'm trying to do the opposite here.
I like
in the
that.
hope
I like that.
we'll see Fernando Alonso P1, Charles Leclerc P2. We'll see. Let's take a look at how this weekend will shape up here in the very heartland of Formula One, the Principality of Monaco, the jewel in the F1 crown. Well, we'll be live to build up to free practice 1 at 1:15 local time, with free practice 2 build-up coming at 16:45 and free practice from 5 p.m. Then we look ahead to Saturday, 12:15 on air to build up to FP3. And our pre-qualifying show that kicks off at 3:30 with qualifying, the most important qualifying session of the year at 4 p.m. That post-qualifying show will be after the checkered flag, will be after the moment we find out who will be on pole here for race day at the Monaco Grand Prix. Our pre-race show starts at 2 p.m. We'll bring you all of the action from the grid, from the pit lane here in Monaco, with the race starting at 3 p.m. and the post-race show immediately after the podium, where someone will be on that very top step. Who? We're just not quite so sure yet. Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez. Who knows what will happen, but we will see one of those drivers, indeed any of these drivers, up there on the top step here in the resplendent sunshine of the port of Monaco, one of the most challenging, stressful, intense and beautiful races on the calendar. As the bands kick in, the glitz and the glamour here in the port begins to shine. We build up to a brilliant race weekend, an action-packed race weekend here in Monaco. We'll see you tomorrow for free practice 1.